Also tonight, the graffiti vandal who's been freed on appeal. His painting has now given him a sense of purpose, said the court. But is it art or a criminal act? After the break, as a graffiti vandal is freed on appeal, we examine how spray paint art in the streets and subways could become a serious commercial proposition. A 23-year-old graffiti writer who was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment for vandalism has been freed on appeal. Simon Sunderland was convicted of carrying out an 18-month campaign of spray painting buildings and vehicles in Sheffield. Today, the Court of Appeal said the sentence was inappropriate and that he'd now found a sense of purpose and direction in his art. Lindsay Taylor reports on the case and asks whether graffiti writing is art or vandalism.
Graffiti is commonplace in city centres across Britain, seen by some as part of the hip-hop culture. But the tag Fista disappeared from the scene in Sheffield over a year ago. The authorities were on his trail and he was prosecuted for repeated offences of criminal damage. Fista, in real life Simon Sunderland, was well known in the graffiti scene, but his claims to be expressing his art cut little ice with the Crown Court judge, who sentenced him to 5 years in prison. Today, his mother was at the appeal court to hear Sunderland's lawyers ask for his sentence to be cut. Supporters campaigning for his release argue that he'd been harshly treated for merely expressing what they say is art. The court heard that while in prison, Sunderland had moved from concrete to canvas, using sheets for his work and earning the admiration of those at art classes he'd attended. The 3 appeal court judges said Simon Sunderland's actions were not a boy's own caper or prank. Graffiti was a thorough nuisance that took time and money to correct. But they agreed his 5-year sentence had been out of kilter. Such a term would normally suggest a crime of violence such as mugging or robbery. Cheers outside and inside the court as the judges reduced the sentence to 2 years. With time served and remission, Sunderland would be freed. What is your basic reaction just once again?
Overwhelmed, brilliant, really happy.
What are his plans now and what are yours?
We go home and speak about Simon's future.
There are those in Sheffield still with sort of bitter memories of this and saying, you know, it should be cleaned out. What do you say to them tonight or this afternoon?
I'm just overwhelmed that Simon's coming home.
There's no chance of him using a spray can again then?
I think it shows like justice has not been done. He shouldn't have been inside in the first place, basically.
But you're pretty pleased?
Oh, definitely, over the moon.
It was set up as an example by the state and basically...
By Sheffield Council.
By Sheffield Council.
Shows, you know, how bad it was in the first place. He got the 5 years, so, you know, really chuffed for him, really chuffed for his family.
Despite claims about Sunderland's talent, Mr. Justice Rougier commented, "It will be some time before this appellant will be asked to restore the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel." Still, the case has reopened the whole debate over whether graffiti is art. Few would argue that what's going on in this video footage is anything but vandalism. Criminal damage carried out in dangerous circumstances, which cost the rail authorities and others whose sites have targeted hundreds of thousands of pounds a year to put right. It can also land the perpetrators with an early criminal record.
As far as the law is concerned, of course, if somebody damages anybody else's property without their consent, it's a criminal offence. So we have to look at it in that view. Our biggest problem really is to try and get it home to the juveniles involved in this type of crime that they can seriously damage their future life chances.
The desire to adorn one's surroundings seems to be one of the earliest instincts, as these Stone Age cave drawings would suggest. Over the centuries, people have wanted to leave their mark in all sorts of places. In Westminster Abbey, the coronation chair bears the names of naughty Westminster schoolboys who carved their place in history before the practice was stopped. But some of today's graffiti and murals seen on housing estates like this in West London have become, it's argued, a modern art form, which is being replicated in comics, advertisements and films. It's led to the formation of some legal or tolerated graffiti sites, like the Hall of Fame off Golborne Road.
of the year.
You can have as many legal sites as you like, but the fact of the matter is there's always going to be an element who are going to stick to doing illegal pieces. Even if the whole culture were to be legalised tomorrow, there's still those people that go out and do it illegally for whatever reasons they choose to do it. But legal sites would help because it would give young people who want to be creative an avenue.
The artful dodger has built up a successful business as a commercial graffiti writer. Some believe Simon Sunderland could now follow in his path.
If you look at some forms of advertising, especially towards the younger audience, you'll see aspects of graffiti in a lot of things. There's been certain commercial products where they've used blatant graffiti images in the background. They may not always admit to this, but if you look closely, you'll definitely see forms of this. And if Simon has the right head on his shoulders, which I think he has, he could perhaps become quite successful from this.
But all that will have to wait a bit. Simon's mother later left the court upset after being told her son would not be released from prison for a few days because of administrative reasons. He learned a lesson that needed teaching, said the judges, but the question is, will others put their talents to good use or continue to be what many see as a plague on the environment?